How many of you love traveling? Right, of course you do. Just about everyone loves going to new places and experiencing different parts of the world. One of the most popular tourism destinations, especially for America, is their very own state of Hawaii. According to the Hawaiian Tourism Authority, Hawaii experienced a record number of tourism, 8.3 million in 2014 alone. Hawaii has five main islands that visitors come to see, and two others, such as Molokai, that still draw crowds, but not as much. Each island prides itself on having different features and different attractions that draw tourism in. Kauai, for example, has very little urban development, but a lot of hiking and natural sites, while Oahu has Waikiki, a huge hopping beach development. The tourism industry earns a huge amount of revenue for the islands, creating a huge economic impact. The industry contributes over $10 billion annually, which amounts to over 21% of the state's entire economy. As I mentioned earlier, Waikiki is a very popular destination consisting of a strip along the beach of hotels, bars, restaurants, and shopping. This area alone on Oahu generates over half the tourism revenue for the state. Clearly, tourism is impacting the state in a huge positive way, but as tourism continues to increase, there are many growing concerns for the islands. Much of my research shows that the natives and other analysts feel that there are three main negative impacts that the tourism industry is causing them to feel. The first is that more tourists coming to the islands could be a huge problem with availability and room for these people. Tourists are also changing the normal Hawaiian culture in a number of ways. And finally, tourists are beginning to feel unwanted as friction increases with the native Hawaiians in the area. Let's begin with a look at the first concern for growing tourism on the islands. As tourism is continuing to grow, many areas in Hawaii, such as Waikiki, are starting to feel increased pressure to cater to these new tourists. As I mentioned earlier, Waikiki is leading the state in tourism, generating over half the revenue, and therefore Oahu is generating over 75% of the tourism money. Waikiki is facing huge challenges with the growing number of tourists. Hotels are beginning to reach capacity and become overbooked, restaurants struggling to keep up with all their customers, and shops running out of inventory. Some people feel that the area of Waikiki is beginning to become so overrun with people that it is starting to be unappealing and will deter these additional tourists. Many people are jumping on the train to seek out less crowded, more natural areas, and Waikiki is far from this. One thing the state is doing to try to avoid this problem is to transfer tourism to other islands. One of the islands they're focusing on is Kauai. As I mentioned earlier, Kauai is very rural. The road only goes halfway around the island. So there's many problems with this, especially when the other islands don't have development at the same level as Oahu. Tourists on Hawaii are also facing challenges with the natives in the area, which brings us to our second concern. Natives pride themselves on having a simple way of life on the island. There are very few necessities for these people outside of food and shelter. From personal experience, I know that many of them have just part-time jobs and they spend the rest of the day surfing or hanging around with friends. Money and status don't concern these people very much, and many of the children stay on the island after high school graduation. Tourism is changing their culture and way of life in several ways. Land is a huge part of their culture there. They have many sacred areas and places they like to go to have huge expanses of undeveloped land. Many foreigners and large companies are coming in and buying these properties either for commercial development or for housing. Another problem is the taro industry. The taro industry is beginning to suffer because many of their farms are being taken away or bought out. Another problem is that tourists are raising the price of living. So these tourists are driving up the price of homes, groceries, and even gas, and for many of these Hawaiians that are used to working just part-time and living the simple life, it's becoming a struggle for them to survive. Foreigners have also begun exploiting the Hawaiian culture. Things we commonly think of in Hawaii like leis, hula dancing, luau's, etc. are a huge draw for tourists. But what we do not realize is that these things are not as critical to the culture for the natives as we believe. Natives are unhappy with the way they are portrayed in some of these areas, and that's leading to tension. These tensions is the third and final reason people are concerned for increasing tourism. Native Hawaiians have become increasingly more angry and upset that tourism and white people have begun taking over their islands. While many places are still completely friendly, there have been a few known incidences over the recent years. One major problem is tourists venturing off-path onto land or areas that are owned by Native Hawaiians. As I said earlier, they have very sacred ideals of land, and they don't want tourists on these places that they consider sacred in theirs. Hawaiians also like to live a very honest life. They don't usually lock their doors, they're very trusting of one another, and with the influx of tourism, and some of these tourists even staying permanently, the crime rates have been driven up to sky-high levels. The natives feel as if it's all the tourists' fault, because before them there was low crime rates, they had the good life, etc. Hawaiians are pushing for more respect, especially in the areas that are natural. Hawaii is an amazing and beautiful place that should be appreciated by people from all over the world. But we can't forget that not everything is positive in the minds of these Hawaiians. The three main negative impacts people are concerned with is the inability to absorb more tourists, changing of Hawaiian culture, and friction between natives and tourists. So for us, is it worth it to exploit these people every day, or can we find a way to enjoy Hawaii's beauty that will not disturb the natives and natural areas? Thank you.